Come on, Bullet. Let's go find this kid.
Let me just start by saying Bloober Team's Blair Witch might just be one of the best horror games I have ever played. Now I know what you're thinking. That's a pretty bold statement. Can this guy back that up with some facts? Well, facts, no. But opinions, yes. Having played an incredible amount of horror games throughout my entire life, I feel comfortable with my opinion that this game has instantly and easily joined the ranks of Silent Hill 2, Resident Evil, Dead Space and PT as another best-in-class example of how to create genuine horror in the video games medium.
It doesn't sound like it. Alice, maybe you should...
No, I said I'm fine.
Yeah, of course you are.
Now listen, I think I saw something. I gotta go. I'll call you later. I'm sorry, Jess.
Bloober Team caught my attention with 2016's Layers of Fear, a game that I picked up on a whim in early access after seeing the original intriguing trailer. Since then I've kept a watchful eye on everything the studio creates, as Layers of Fear went on to surpass all my wildest expectations, and this year's Layers of Fear 2 blew my mind once again in all the right ways. Cementing themselves as true masters of building atmosphere, tension and diving deep down into the human psychological elements of horror, I was delighted when at E3 this year a Blair Witch game was announced with Bloober Team at the helm.
It's okay, buddy. It's all gone, see?
Blair Witch sees you filling the shoes of protagonist Ellis, a former cop with a very dark and troubled past who sets off into the Black Hills forest in search of a missing child, his motive for doing so driven by redemption and guilt. He doesn't set off alone though, oh no. At his side is his trusty German Shepherd Bullet, but I'll get back to him a little later.
When a group of students ventured into the woods near Burkittsville, never to be seen again.
Right from the off, the game sows the seeds of intrigue. Ellis isn't here because he wants to help. Flashbacks of fragmented memories penetrate through the gameplay, and remarks made by your on-again, off-again girlfriend Jess via cell phone calls that you as a player can choose to make during the game hint that Ellis is doing this for all the wrong reasons.
Let's call Lanning.
Conversations with the other members of the search party over the radio also back up these claims, as your former boss and sheriff remarks on your mental state and whether it's the right choice for you to be here. But regardless of all this, you dive headfirst into the infamous Black Hills Forest, a location so synonymous within the horror genre that is so beautifully recreated here, right down to the tiniest mind-bending details.
Sir, I'm here to help. That's all there is to it. Bullet's with me. If he catches the scent, he'll lead us straight to the kid.
You got a point there. You think you're up for it? Your health issues, they're not going to be a problem?
Sir, I'm not going to screw this up. Not this time.
Fans of the original film and its 2016 sequel know that this is no ordinary forest. Pathways loop back on themselves and nothing quite makes sense. Walk for hours in one direction only to find yourself right back where you started. Watch as night instantly becomes day and back again. Time plays by its own rules in these woods, and so does geography. The forest is genuinely beautiful during the day, but quickly becomes insidious and oppressive during the night. I found myself keeping Bullet as close as possible, and naturally began to panic whenever he strayed too far during these darker moments. It's hard to explain, but I've never felt such conflicting feelings about level design as I have whilst exploring this forest. Blair Witch gives the player no guide arrows, no maps, and no pointers regarding which direction to walk or where to explore, and this lends itself perfectly to making the forest feel daunting and suppressive. The fear of getting lost was very real, and at times I would spin around checking the available routes to try and decipher where I was supposed to go next. On the other hand, I never actually found myself getting lost. The game has a beautiful level design that meant every wrong turn would loop me back on myself to a familiar location, or spin me around to the place right back where I started. These two design choices, although somewhat contradictory, blend together perfectly to immerse you in the madness of this iconic forest, whereby you always fear getting lost, but somehow always end up right where you need to be.
Yeah, that's the one.
Well, this doesn't make sense. All of this. It's just ridiculous. God damn it, Ellis. It was a mistake letting you come here. You wanted to redeem yourself. I get it. And I wanted to help, but this is too much for you. You're not thinking straight.
Hey, don't talk to me like I'm crazy.
As far as gameplay is concerned, Blair Witch is fundamentally a walking simulator. Collectibles are peppered throughout the game, and the game only has one true puzzle dropped into its around 5-hour runtime. But that's not to say it's unoriginal or uninspired. The game kits you out with all the standard horror protagonist prep kit essentials: a flashlight, a camera, a radio, and a mobile phone. All of these tools have great little gameplay mechanics tied to them that feed directly back into the core strength of this game: its storytelling.
Yeah, well, not much luck so far. But hey, you know, at least Bullet's happy we're out of the house.
You can engage with these items as much or as little as you wish. Whenever you're in an area with mobile phone signal, feel free to drop your ex-girlfriend a call, or check your voicemail. If you discover something interesting while searching for the lost child, radio the other search party to fill them in on the details.
Yeah, I hope you're right. Over and out.
And collect tapes from around the forest that you can play back on your handycam to alter and change your surroundings. The camera is one of my favourite mechanics, and I must admit it's not something I've ever seen in any game before now. Watching old found footage and then rewinding or fast forwarding to a certain moment to impact the world around you is genuinely a stroke of genius.
The hell? This wasn't here a minute ago, right, buddy? This tape. Did it just... No, that's not possible.
Sound design in Blair Witch is immense throughout, and I would be remiss if I didn't at least touch upon it. During one of the game's darker slogs through the woods in search of items to complete a puzzle, I was genuinely shaken by sounds of twigs popping and cracking behind me, or off into the distance as my own footsteps fell silent amongst the trees.
Heal! Heal!
Whispers of the titular witch in the latter half of the game also serve as a fantastic way to push the player into really believing Ellis is losing it, as your resolve is tested to its limits during these climactic chapters. Now then, on to Bullet. Never have I felt so attached to a video game sidekick. NPC characters throughout gaming have a bad rep for being frustrating, getting in your way, and being downright annoying, but Bullet is far from all those things. He is your safety blanket. The game gives you a range of commands you can relay to your trusty pooch. Things like Seek to search out items close by, Reprimand, which I never use, not even once, because he is the goodest boy in all of gaming, Pet, which I used constantly whenever I needed a moment of happiness amidst the hellish forest, and Stay Close, which was genuinely the feature I used most throughout the game. Having Bullet stay close honestly makes you feel safe, and in the game's few sections where Bullet runs off, you genuinely feel the panic of not having him with you. I very rarely used the sprint button during my playthrough, but would use it whenever he took off running because I was not comfortable without him by my side. Without spoiling any story content, let me just say that a section in the latter half of the game saw me dedicate around 15 minutes of my playtime simply walking in loops because I was so damn attached to this digital dog. Bullet is also the centerpiece of the game's very loose combat mechanics. Much like in Alan Wake, your flashlight is your only weapon against the creatures that hunt you, but relying on Bullet to growl and point out where these invisible foes are is key to your survival out here in the Black Hills. As much as I would love to touch upon the excellent story, I will only do so lightly, as there is a huge amount to unpack here, and it's best observed firsthand. But let me just say that Bloober Team, with their incredible knack for planting the true horror in their titles within the psyche of their protagonists and the inner demons they're fighting, were the perfect fit for a game set in this universe. Much like the original film, the titular witch is more of a foreboding presence than an out-and-out monster that's coming for you. The character's own descent into madness in the face of such adversity is the true enemy here, but that's not to say things don't get supernatural during the course of the runtime.
I don't understand. Emmett. Oh god. Fuck.
I'll finish up by speaking a little about the game's phenomenal climax. After hours of wandering the woods, lost, scared and alone, you stumble upon the house. The house where nothing good can happen. From the moment you step foot inside, the tempo changes and the game hits you with everything it's got. Creatures stalk the halls, handprints appear on walls, corridors twist and bend in unnatural ways, and the visions and flashbacks Ellis has experienced during his time in the forest come crashing through into reality.
Let's done this, done. No point dwelling on the past. This is your chance to do something good, Ellis. Don't waste it.
Come here. Come to me.
As far as terrifying sections in horror games go, this was an absolute masterclass. At around half an hour of the overall runtime, exploring the maze that is the witch's house was a real high point in an already excellent experience for me. I've never felt such immediate terror before. Walking around the woods felt like an absolute pleasure compared to stepping into the house and contending with the tight corridors and never-ending loops of hellish, fever dream-esque madness.
Get in the corner. Don't look at her.
Blair Witch immediately looked set to be a pretty cool horror title from the moment it was announced, but I'm pleased to say it smashed past all my expectations to become, honestly, one of my favourite horror experiences of all time. With a short, concise runtime, it never outstays its welcome, and it never drags its feet for the sake of stretching it out. Bloober Team have crafted a story here worthy of the original source material, and a story of personal mental torment that digs right down into what makes horror games scary in the first place. Thank God for Bullet. Without him, I doubt I would have made it 2 steps into these terrifying woods.
Ellis, you got my message.
You, wanted to see me, sir?
Better yet, I want to introduce you to someone. Bullet, meet your new partner. He's been through a lot, just like you.
What? Sir, I can't.
Oh, you got something else going on right now? Just take the damn dog, Ellis.
Yes, sir.